everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. As you can see from the title and thumbnail of today's video, today we're going to be talking about a study that is surprising a lot of people, but it doesn't surprise people like me. And that is a new study that shows that 88% of college students report pretending to hold more progressive views than they really do. I know, sounds shocking, right? But we're going to get right into that. Now, the reason why I know about this particular story is because of this tweet right here on the screen, which you can see by Steve Stewart Williams, the author of the article. And the article comes from the website that's named after him. His tweet says, 78% of students told us they self-censor on their beliefs surrounding gender identity, 72% on politics, 68% on family values. More than 80% said they had submitted classwork that misrepresented their views in order to align with professors. Now, if you go ahead and click on the link he provides, it takes you to the article itself, which I think this is a Substack channel or site, whatever you want to call it. But the article is called Faking Wokeness to Fit In. Subtitle says, 88% of students report pretending to hold more progressive views than they really do. You gotta scroll down a bit past the picture and past a couple other things, and that's where you get to the actual article. A new study finds that nearly 9 in 10 students fake more progressive views than they really hold, often to appease professors or stay in their peers' good graces. The habit doesn't stop at the classroom door. Even close friends and romantic partners are kept in the dark. From lecture halls to late-night conversations, students are learning that conformity pays and candor costs. If universities still see themselves as incubators of independent thought, these numbers should be a wake-up call. Can students truly develop as thinkers when honesty feels unsafe? Oh boy, do I have a lot to say about that after we read the article. But let's continue. Below is an excerpt from an article in The Hill by the study's authors, Kevin Waldman and Forrest Rahm. You can read the full piece here and check out the study it's based on here. And this is a direct quotation. Between 2023 and 2025, we conducted 1,452 confidential interviews with undergraduates at Northwestern University and the University of Michigan. We were not studying politics, we were studying development. Our question was clinical, not political. What happens to identity formation when belief is replaced by adherence to orthodoxy? We asked, have you ever pretended to hold more progressive views than you truly endorse to succeed socially or academically? An astounding 88% said yes. 78% of students told us they self-censor on their beliefs surrounding gender identity. In other words, transgenderism and that kind of stuff. 72% on politics, which most likely means they're pretending to be leftist Democrats. 68% on family values. More than 80% said they had submitted classwork that misrepresented their views in order to align with professors. To test the gap between expression and belief, we used gender discourse, a contentious topic both highly visible and ideologically loaded. In public, students echoed expected progressive narratives. In private, however, their views were more complex. Perhaps most telling, 77% said they disagreed with the idea that gender identity should override biological sex in such domains as sports, healthcare, or public data, but would never voice that disagreement aloud. And this fragmentation doesn't end at the classroom door. 73% of students reported mistrust in conversations about these values with close friends. I guess you're not that close. Nearly half said they routinely conceal beliefs in intimate relationships for fear of ideological fallout. In other words, if they come out as being conservative in any way, shape, or form, or at least dissenting from a leftist globalist narrative, they're concerned about their partner having a total mental collapse and freaking out on them, possibly becoming abusive. That's basically what that means. This is not sustainable. If higher education is to fulfill its promise as a site of intellectual and moral development, it must relearn the difference between support and supervision. It must recenter truth, not consensus, as its animating value. And it must give back to students what it has taken from them: the right to believe and the space to become. So basically, the vast majority of college students pretend to hold progressive leftist globalist views on all kinds of topics in order to align with their professors, i.e. pass their classes, get their degrees, and in their personal relationships with people on campus, mainly going along to get along because they fear if they were to say what they really think that they could suffer some form of persecution for it, which in today's day and age, that's a completely reasonable expectation to have. We have seen the violence from leftists mostly who have gone after their political opponents to the point where they're literally murdering them, aka Charlie Kirk. I responded to the author's original tweet saying, considering the vast majority of colleges and professors are leftists promoting a leftist globalist agenda on top of evolutionary dogma, people who want a degree will conform. And that is so true. Why did I say that? It's because long before wokeism and cancel culture became mainstream in American culture and society, cancel culture and censorship was originally being done towards Christians and creationists in the academic world. Specifically, anyone who dissented from or casted even a little bit of doubt on Darwinian evolution, well, all manner of bad things could happen to them. As a matter of fact, I am going to read to you a section from this book by Jerry Bergman called Slaughter of the Dissidents, Volume 1, The Shocking Truth About Killing the Careers of Darwin Doubters. Now, I'm going to read a segment that starts on page 3 and extends into page 5 of this book. It's going to be a bit of a long read, but if you guys will bear with me and you listen all the way through, once I'm done reading this section, I would like you to let me know in the comments section below if this sounds like cancel culture tactics and censorship to you. This is what Dr. Jerry Bergman writes on pages 3 to 5 of Slaughter of the Dissidents, Volume 1. In this section, I attempt to set forth in summary form the main types of discrimination experienced by those who have openly criticized or even expressed doubts about some aspect of Darwinian evolutionary theory. Each of these forms of discrimination will be explored in greater detail in the case studies presented later in this book. The following summary of how discrimination against Darwin doubters is most frequently manifested will serve as a useful point of orientation. Number 1. Derogatory and inappropriate comments. Examples range from minor events such as the placing of obscene cartoons on the victim's desk, e.g. one that showed a creationist as having a pea-sized brain and an evolutionist as a normal-sized brain, to the more serious, constant inundation of insults and name-calling aimed at a Darwin doubter's scientific or personal religious beliefs, especially if they are sympathetic with, real or alleged, creationist or intelligent design concepts. In an employment situation, courts have ruled such name-calling is considered illegal harassment since it produces a hostile work environment. As will be documented, such comments can have a devastating effect on one's career and personal life. Many students and educators were also asked questions about their religious orientation. Aside from these queries being potentially illegal, information gained from them has been used against both students and educators seeking to secure a degree or a tenured faculty position. Number 2, denial of admittance to graduate programs. Candidates for graduate programs have in some cases clearly met admission criteria, having high GRE scores, 3.5 grade point average, etc., but letters of recommendation advised against admission because of the applicant's doubts about Darwinism or evolution, religious beliefs, or history of involvement in a religious organization. This seems to be clear evidence that these students' denial of admittance was or may have been decided inappropriately. The effect of this action has resulted in blocking entry of Darwin doubters into a science-related profession at the very earliest stages. It effectively serves to curtail career advancement for an individual viewed as unfit for work in various types of environments, such as academia or in the biological sciences, for example. Number 3, denial of degrees. In some cases, students met all legitimate degree requirements but were denied degrees anyway. It can reasonably be assumed that the student was denied the degree solely or largely because of his or her perspective on the origins issue. The discriminatory comments for those cases we examined were frequently in writing and were usually verified by interviewing others, often non-creationists or others who rejected ID arguments. The impact of this type of discrimination on individuals who have put a great deal of work into preparing for a career was and still is significant and has prevented many from ever entering their chosen career. Number 4, denial of deserved promotion. Many competent and qualified Darwin doubters have suffered the loss of career advancement because of their views. Non-promotion of individuals that clearly met all the requirements for promotion, had earned high student ratings, achieved more than an adequate number of publications, etc., is evidence of bias, especially in cases where other individuals of equal or lesser accomplishment were promoted. Comments by faculty such as "all persons who deny Darwinism are incompetent" and "if you weren't tenured we would terminate you" are evidence of bias against Darwin doubters. Number 5, censorship of Darwin critical works from libraries and schools. Where large libraries have dozens of books promoting Darwinism, yet few or no books promoting creationism or intelligent design, or even some of the better published work critical of Darwinism or aspects of evolution, this can reasonably be viewed as an indication of censorship. In some cases, works critical of Darwinism have been donated to libraries but never made their way to library shelves. Number 6. Firings, terminations, and denial of tenure. A significant number of the cases that I have examined involved open firing or termination as a result of publishing articles on creationism, intelligent design, or the weaknesses in Darwinism or evolution, even though many times these publications were not directly associated with their job or career positions. These cases frequently involved individuals who met or exceeded the criteria for continuing employment in terms of a sufficient number of acceptable, relevant, and even peer-reviewed publications, and who demonstrated adequate or better ability, comprehension, and understanding of knowledge required for their jobs or teaching performance, yet they were terminated. Where clear evidence of religious bias existed in these cases, it constitutes reasonable evidence, or in legal terminology, probable cause, that the termination was due to the individual's religious orientation, even when their religious views were not known or fully understood, and even if their dissent focused on science, not religion. Furthermore, loss of a job or a career has often resulted in significant financial difficulties, even bankruptcy or loss of one's home on top of a means of earning a living. Some former professors, most with 9 years on average of education in the sciences, were forced to take whatever work they could find, including driving taxi cabs or trucks, becoming part-time teachers, or entering an entirely different career, often having nothing to do with their degree or university training. The stress associated with these changes has often produced financial, family, and other problems, often ending in divorce, moving to different cities and or states, adverse effects on children, and even self-deletion for the YouTube censors out there. Number 7, demotions. A number of educators in evolutionary biology have been removed from courses they previously taught and instead were made to teach introductory biology courses, or were reassigned to courses outside of the biology department altogether. In such cases, the rationales for such moves were often determined to be based on the expression or allegations of doubts about Darwinian theory, the presumption that the educators were proselytizing or teaching their students about creation or ID, or for other religious or philosophical reasons. Demotions can also be defined as placing someone into an administrative position, anything to get them out of the classroom. And finally, number 8, threats and personal intimidation. Some critics of Darwinism have experienced blatant threats and personal intimidation, including death threats. Such threats not only produce fear and stress, but often affects family relations, career advancement, self-esteem, and student-teacher or professor relations. Some of these threats have been acted on, resulting in hospitalizations, surgery, and permanent ongoing health issues. So, after hearing everything that creationists and Christians have been enduring in academia for daring to dissent from evolution or even to cast doubt on evolution in deep time, considering everything that Christians, creationists, and Darwin doubters have gone through over the decades when it comes to persecution in academia, tell me something. Does what I read sound like exactly what we're going through today with cancel culture? It sure does to me. And based on that article we read in the first part of this video, it sure sounds like people are holding more progressive views regarding certain topics in order to pass their classes, get their degrees, be in good social standing so that they're not ostracized from their friend groups or their family circles, because that's been happening a lot in the last 10 years. People getting disassociated from their families because they dared to have a conservative or centrist opinion on something. So yeah, it sounds to me like what we're dealing with today in terms of nearly 9 out of 10 college students pretending to be more progressive than they really are in order to get by in secular schools like the University of Michigan and Northwestern University. It sure sounds like what was going on with the censorship and persecution and the canceling of Christians and creationists and Darwin doubters in previous decades sounds like it's made its way to the mainstream and is now being applied to other political and cultural topics. Just wanted to bring that bit of history to you to let you know that what you're seeing today with the vast majority of students in college pretending to be more progressive than they are in order to get by academically and socially, that kind of thing was already going on back in the times before Jerry Bergman wrote Slaughter of the Dissidents. We're talking in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early and mid 2000s. Christians and creationists were going through all of this cancel culture stuff long before the emergence of wokeism and long before woke leftists started employing these techniques against their political opponents. That's the point of bringing this all to your attention. Hopefully you guys learned something about what's going on, and you can take just a little bit of hope that the people going through the academic system today may not be quite as leftist or woke as we like to think they are. It may very well be the case that a lot of these people are merely pretending to be woke, pretending to be leftists in order to get by and get what they want done academically. But even if they do all of that, there are still ways their true opinions can usually be made known, and oftentimes that occurs at the ballot box. That being said, thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you next time.